Hey YouTube, Alex here, and in today's video I want to talk about the top signs of Western decline. Before I get into this one, understand that I'm from the United States. Much of what I talk about is based on my experience in the United States. The first sign is the declining birth rate, and that's something that's been happening for 50 years in the United States. It's a result of industrialization. Very few millennials want to have children, myself included. I don't really see myself reasonably being able to afford it in my lifetime. When people no longer want to have kids, I think it reduces their attachment to the future. When people aren't concerned about the future, I think they orient more towards short-term thinking, myself included. Some might say it's only impulsive people not having kids, but that hasn't been my experience. I think that very few people expect that they will be able to provide the things that they would like to provide for a family. Some of it is economic. I know quite a few people have been laid off from the tech industry. The first thing that happens to a lot of those people who have kids is that they start panicking about how they're going to feed their families, and I have not had such issues. And it does make me feel like, wow, cynicism to some degree has its benefits. For many people in the child-free community, they feel that by not having children, then they are saving their potential future children from a lifetime of unhappiness. I tend to be more optimistic about this one because I think the best thing that could happen is that the people who don't want to have kids choose not to, and the people who really want to have kids choose to have them. You'd have better outcomes. If only the people that are really wanting to have kids, and people that do have kids are having fewer kids than in the past, we are likely to run into a situation where we just don't have enough people to do a lot of jobs that need to be done based on demand. And so I kind of wonder, there's only a few things that can happen. One, the price goes up, or two, society can't service those demands. And in some cases, who cares, right? If Coca-Cola can't put out a bunch more soda, who cares? But when it comes to healthcare, then that is a demand that people cannot live without, especially as they get older. Western countries may see something like Japan, where older people commit crime to avoid being left out on their own, right? They at least have some form of health care, they have housing, and they have food. It's really unfortunate. Yeah, I mean, if they're not capable of working and society's not capable of supporting them, I'm not sure where we go from there. Finally, I feel that parenting, especially single parenting, is not held in the same esteem in Western democracies as it was in the past. I remember in the past, I was raised by a single mom, single grandmother. Everybody was coming around to talk about how brave and how strong and powerful this situation was. And now it's more like, hey, we've had decades and decades of birth control. We've had decades and decades of birth control, many different forms of contraception in 2024, because at least in America, many people are getting poorer. To me, it reminds me a bit of the former Soviet Union, where people would think, oh, former Soviet Union countries were super poor, they must have had a baby boom. No, people became more and more pessimistic about their financial futures and opted out of having children. Those that did have children tended to have fewer children. And this isn't to judge parents or to say, oh, nobody should be a parent. There's plenty of happy, healthy parents out there with wonderful families. You saw this in North Carolina with the student attacking the teacher, and it seems like less and less society can afford this kind of stuff to happen. Due to fewer people having kids, I think Western society has a much more every man for himself mentality. One of the things that I would have to change to increase birth rates is that parenting would have to go back to being held in high esteem. Until then, it's going to be seen as more of a lifestyle choice than anything else. Finally, I think with the rise of secularism in the West, people do not feel a religious compulsion to have children. The number 2 point is the money culture, the cultural obsession around money. And I know some will say, well, every culture is money-oriented, and I won't disagree with you there. But it seemed like many people in Western society had some kind of higher aspiration. It wasn't just money that motivated them, but also a love for country, a love for their faith, love for their creator. And when you see this change, you really wonder, is money enough to satisfy the soul? Is money enough to make a society move forward? And I'm unsure of that. I think one of those telltale signs is a movement that I'm a part of, or that I'm a fan of, called Expat Fire. This is combining the expat lifestyle with the, now if you had told somebody 30 years ago that people would be trying to live below their means to make enough money to permanently leave the West, I think people would be very much surprised that that is a goal of yours. Many of these people want to game the system so that they don't have to play the game anymore. And I think that's telling that people no longer feel attached. A lot of young people are leaving. You can see this, and I'll talk about this later in the video, with the not only the expat movement, but the digital nomad movement as well. I often say if it weren't for a need to make money, many people would leave the West. It's really a financial interest that keeps them working there, these long hours for bosses that don't appreciate them, living around people with whom they don't share values. The number 3 point is a crisis of meaning that we are seeing in Western countries. In the past, if you asked a person in the Western democracies what their purpose was, you'd get a variety of answers that are all quite valid. You might hear some lines about how they want to help support their church, or they want to raise law-abiding citizens, they want to contribute to their community, volunteer and engage in philanthropy. But these days, a lot of the answers seem a lot more vague. What is your purpose in life? Well, I want to make money, or I just want to have fun. And the answers are just not very clear and often seem more short-sighted. If you've ever worked an office job, then you know what it feels like to at times feel like your work does not have a strong sense of meaning. It's one thing if you are a doctor saving lives, or you work in a grocery store helping to feed people, but build this little widget or sell this piece of software that will help companies make a little bit more money is simply not as fulfilling for a lot of people. I have had this feeling in various office jobs where we have this sense of your whole purpose is to just make number go up. Just make number go up. If you make number go up, boss's number go up, and everybody get paid. And I know some would say you don't have to work in tech, but those jobs pay a lot. If you're trying to improve your financial situation, you want to pick a job where you can earn a lot of money such that you can save and invest the extra. I think we see this with the US military, where in the past people would feel like they're defending freedom, and now we're just making sure the wealthy and the elite stay wealthy and elite. The 4th point is Western political division. I think that Western societies have eliminated the middle class, or the middle class is on its way out. And what we see is mostly either poor or rich people. People no longer seem interested in fixing the issues in Western society. They just want to earn enough money such that the problems no longer apply to them. I think this is increasingly more and more common in an every man for themselves society. It's not uncommon in the United States for family members to no longer speak to one another over political disagreements. I try to find humor in the decline. One of the funniest situations I'm familiar with, this isn't really the political division, but it is a lack of unity, is during the start of COVID when people in Australia were fighting over toilet paper. There's some funny videos out there of this. I recommend looking them up if you want a laugh. The 5th and final point is that we see the rise of digital nomads, expats, passport bros, and we have all these names for these people who no longer want to live in their home countries anymore. Many provide great reasoning as to why they don't want to live in their home countries anymore. Whether it's the high cost of living, or the crime, or the social dysfunction and decay, a surprising number of people are wanting to get out of Western democracies in a way that hasn't ever been seen in the past, unless it's to go establish another Western democracy. So this is a fairly new phenomenon. I think it's here to stay. I think as long as Western democracies continue to be poorly managed, you will see more and more people that want to leave. I am shocked at the growth in terms of expat forums that I look at, in terms of the digital nomad subreddit. You just see and hear of so many people sick and tired of it and wanting to go elsewhere. If you'd told me 10 years ago I'd be living in Thailand, I would tell you you're crazy. At that point, I had not yet been to Thailand, and I was happy with my life in the West 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I was in a long-term relationship. My online business was doing pretty well. I was thinking about moving to a different part of the United States, I hadn't yet realized much of the US, it looks all the same. And no, I don't mean from a natural perspective, but I do mean from an architecture perspective. I've been in strip malls in California and couldn't tell the difference from my home city in Tennessee. In an effort of efficiency, things just have to be done in a more uniform way, where for those of us who are creative, think outside the box. There are some other places where things are just quite different. I think my favorite quote that I've heard recently is that the American dream is to leave America. What a shock. I think a lot of people, especially young people, are not as thrilled about their prospects as was the case in the past. Some people say that the tech recession is temporary, but I think that with the rise of AI, we may never go back to a time when the tech industry has lots of high-paid positions and can provide a way up for people of lesser means. Let me know what you think down in the comments section below. Do you agree that Western civilization is in decline? Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe to the channel down below if you want to see more content like this, and we'll see you next time.